The hum of the Icarus engines was a constant reminder of the immense power at humanity's disposal. Captain Michael Garrick stood on the bridge, watching the stars through the viewing portal. His eyes, bloodshot from days of tension, fixed on the darkness beyond. A sense of dread had settled over him, something he hadn't felt since his first deployment all those years ago. It wasn't fear, no. It was something worse. A creeping realization that they had gone too far. The mission was clear: strike the Crate cluster, wipe out the Galzan colony, and send a message to the aliens that Earth would not be pushed around anymore. But the bomb, this bomb, was humanity's final answer. It was a weapon so destructive that no one, not even the UFI's top scientists, had dared imagine its full potential. And now, after months of preparation, it was ready. "Captain, the bomb is fully armed. We're ready for launch." Lieutenant Grayson's voice cut through his thoughts. The officer stood at his console, eyes scanning the readout. Garrick took a deep breath, his fingers gripping the edge of the command chair. "Launch the bomb," he ordered, his voice betraying nothing but the cold, calculated resolve that had become his second skin. The weapon, a bomb the size of a small moon, was fired directly into the heart of the Crate cluster, a region in space long occupied by the Galzan Empire. The aliens had been harvesting resources from asteroids in the region for years, leaving Earth's population to scrape by on what was left. This wasn't just a mission, it was retribution. Garrick had been briefed on the bomb's power, enough to reduce entire planetary systems to rubble. He didn't need to see the data to understand its devastation. But in the back of his mind, a question lingered. Could this be enough? Could one strike end a war that had raged for decades? Seconds turned into minutes, and still, nothing. "Target reached. No detonation," said Ensign Ramirez, her voice tense, confused. Garrick's stomach twisted. The bomb had failed. It wasn't possible. "What do you mean, failed?" Ramirez turned, her face pale. "It's as if the bomb was redirected, Captain. It's coming back toward us." Before anyone could react, the ship's alarms blared, signaling an incoming object. Garrick barely had time to process before the ship's sensors registered the bomb's return trajectory. It was heading straight for the Icarus. "Brace for impact!" Garrick shouted, slamming his hand against the console. The bomb entered the Icarus perimeter, its force nearly overwhelming the ship's shields. The hull creaked under the strain, and the bridge lights flickered. "Evasive maneuvers!" ordered Garrick. He didn't wait for a reply. His mind raced. How was this possible? The bomb was designed with one purpose: to obliterate anything in its path. Yet here it was, returning, as if someone had turned it against them. The Icarus lurched, throwing the crew from their seats as the bomb's intense energy field battered the ship. Garrick grabbed onto the armrests, his mind reeling. "Captain?" Ramirez's voice cut through the chaos. It's not just coming back. It's..." The explosion came before she could finish. But it wasn't the expected destruction. Instead, the blast was absorbed, redirected in a brilliant flash of light, and the energy dissipated before it could destroy the ship. The crew was left in stunned silence. Garrick's heart pounded in his chest. "Report," he said, his voice steady, despite the turmoil inside. "Sir," said Lieutenant Grayson, her fingers shaking on the console. "The bomb, it's been returned to us. But it's different. It's been altered. The technology, it's beyond anything we've ever seen." Garrick leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "What do you mean, altered?" "It's not just the bomb. The entire energy signature is different. It's more advanced. Whatever intercepted the bomb, whoever it was, has upgraded it." "Upgraded?" Garrick repeated, the word hanging in the air like an omen. "How?" Grayson's hands flew over the controls. "We're trying to get a read on it now, sir. But the ship's sensors are barely keeping up with the data. Whatever they did, it's beyond us." The implications were staggering. Not only had the Galzan Empire survived the strike, but they had somehow turned humanity's weapon back on them, improving it in the process. A transmission crackled through the comm system. Garrick's eyes narrowed. He knew what this was. The alien response. Captain Garrick, I trust you've learned your lesson? The voice was cold, almost mocking. It sent a chill down his spine. Garrick didn't need to ask who it was. Zareth, the Galzan's supreme commander. You're welcome to try again, but I wouldn't recommend it. We've already begun adapting to your tactics. This is your last warning, human. The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving Garrick to stare at the empty screen. His mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. The bomb had been sent back. Upgraded. Enhanced. This was no longer just a war for resources. This was something else entirely. The Galzan had no intention of losing, and they had far more at their disposal than humanity could have ever predicted. Garrick turned back to the crew. Get us to Earth, now. We need to prepare for the worst. And I want every scientist on board to figure out how the hell they did this. We're not just fighting for resources anymore. We're fighting for survival. The crew moved with purpose, but Garrick's thoughts were elsewhere. The universe, it seemed, had just shown humanity its place. And that place wasn't at the top. The Icarus floated in Earth's orbit, the glow of the planet below seeming almost mocking. Earth, home to billions of people, now felt distant, detached. Inside the warship, the crew worked tirelessly, their hands moving over consoles, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Captain Garrick stood at the bridge, arms crossed, staring out into the cold expanse of space. The failure to destroy the Crate cluster, the alien heart of the Galzan Empire, was still a bitter pill to swallow. Humanity had placed its trust in a weapon so powerful it could turn planets to dust, yet it had been returned, upgraded, and rendered useless. The bomb was supposed to be humanity's statement of force. Now it had become a symbol of their impotence. Captain, we're receiving a distress signal from the outer colonies. Ramirez, the comms officer, interrupted his thoughts. They're under attack. We need to respond. Garrick didn't reply immediately. He turned toward her, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down. Their failure in the Crate cluster had set off a chain reaction. And now, the Galzan Empire had grown bolder, attacking Earth's colonies and leaving destruction in its wake. What's their status? Garrick asked, his voice strained. 2 colonies have already been breached, Captain. The third is holding for now, but it won't last long if we don't intervene. He nodded. They couldn't afford to wait any longer. Prepare the fleet. Garrick ordered, his voice firm. We need to hit them back. Now. The crew sprang into action, pulling up tactical data and coordinating with Earth's defense systems. The Icarus was Earth's flagship, its systems built for both offense and defense, but even this formidable warship had limits. And those limits had just been reached. In the war room below the bridge, Garrick met with the Council of Officers. Grayson, his tactical officer, paced at the head of the table. Her eyes were sharp, focused. We've got to figure out how they re-engineered the bomb, she said, breaking the silence. They've clearly got technology beyond anything we've got. If we don't understand that, we'll never stand a chance. Garrick leaned forward. We'll figure it out. But first, we need to stop the bleeding. I'm not letting those colonies fall. Agreed, Grayson responded. But we need time. Time to rebuild our weaponry. The current systems are too slow. The aliens adapted too quickly. A quiet murmur of agreement ran through the room. The problem was bigger than just an upgraded bomb. They were facing a species that could adapt faster than humanity could respond. We have no time. The colonies won't last, Garrick said, his voice growing harder. We'll hit them with everything we've got. And when we've regained some ground, we'll hit back harder. We need intel on their technology. Grayson pushed. We've got to catch up. A new voice entered the room. I've got something. Ensign Ramirez's voice crackled through the comm system. Garrick turned toward her. What is it? An anomaly, Captain, Ramirez said, her voice urgent. We've been tracking Galzan fleet movements. They've been gathering near the Zarnath Nebula. Something's off about their formations. They're preparing for something big. Garrick stood abruptly. That's it. They're planning a full-scale strike. We have to beat them to the punch. He turned to the officers. Prepare the Icarus for battle. And get me the best minds in engineering and science. If we're going to survive this, we need to know exactly what we're up against. I want everything about that bomb's new configuration analyzed. On the flight deck, the tension was palpable. Engineers and officers scrambled to make adjustments, running diagnostics on the ship's systems. Garrick watched as Grayson moved through the ranks, giving orders, ensuring the ship was in fighting condition. Captain, Grayson called, returning to the command center. We've got a potential breakthrough on the bomb. The energy signatures from the returned weapon are unlike anything we've seen before. It's almost as if the Galzan have fused quantum technology with their energy field systems. Quantum? Garrick asked. Can you confirm it? Not fully, but it's the only explanation for how they could rechannel and enhance the energy output. The bomb wasn't just redirected, it was re-engineered on a molecular level. So they didn't just survive the blast. They absorbed it and turned it into something stronger? Garrick said, his mind racing. Exactly. We're looking at a hybrid technology, Captain. It's a game changer. Whatever we do, we'll need a new kind of weapon, something they haven't adapted to yet. We'll figure it out. But right now, we have to stop them from attacking Earth. The colonies won't hold much longer. Grayson nodded. Understood, sir. The Icarus dropped out of hyperspace just outside the Zarnath Nebula. The dense cloud of gas and dust obscured vision, but the sensors were still operational. The Galzan fleet was scattered throughout the nebula, presumably to avoid detection. But Garrick knew better. They were waiting for something. They were preparing for the final strike. Ready the weapons, Garrick ordered, his voice unwavering. A tense silence filled the command deck as the crew readied themselves for combat. The plan was simple: take the fight to the Galzan, disrupt their formations, and buy Earth's defenses enough time to fortify their positions. Garrick's mind flickered back to the crate cluster. They couldn't afford another failure. Not after the embarrassment of losing the bomb. They had to show the aliens that humanity would never back down. Captain, Grayson said, her voice cutting through the silence. The Galzan are starting to move. They've seen us. Garrick leaned forward, his jaw tight. Engage them. Full speed. The Icarus rocketed forward, cutting through the nebula with its weapons hot. The first wave of enemy ships engaged, their energy beams flashing across the void. Garrick's knuckles whitened as he gripped the command chair. Return fire! He shouted. The ship shook under the barrage, but they held steady. Earth's fleet followed in the Icarus' wake, delivering their own devastating counterstrikes. The tide of battle shifted. For now, humanity was on the offensive. But Garrick knew this was only the beginning. The true fight had just begun. And it wouldn't be won in a single skirmish. The alien threat wasn't just about firepower. It was about survival. The Icarus and its crew had to prove that humanity could adapt too, that they would never be outdone by the very forces that sought to destroy them. But Garrick's mind was already turning to the next challenge, the next phase. The aliens had shown humanity their place in the galaxy. Now, it was time to show them Earth's resolve. The tension in the bridge of the Icarus was suffocating. Earth's flagship had just emerged from a series of brutal engagements, but the real battle was about to begin. The alien fleet, though momentarily scattered, had regrouped, forming a formidable line at the edge of the Zarnath Nebula. Garrick stood at the helm, staring at the holographic projection of the enemy's position. The stakes were clear now. This wasn't just a fight for territory or resources. This was humanity's last stand. Captain, Grayson's voice broke through his thoughts. We've hit a critical point. We need to engage now, or they'll launch the full-scale attack. I know, Garrick replied, his voice steady but his mind racing. The alien fleet outnumbered Earth's forces, but there was one thing they hadn't considered: humanity's ability to adapt. Earth had been knocked down, but it wasn't out. Not yet. He turned toward Grayson, who had been working tirelessly on the bomb's modifications. The engineers had been running simulations for hours, attempting to reverse engineer the alien upgrades. The task was daunting, but they had to succeed. Time was running out. Any breakthroughs? Garrick asked. We've made some progress, Grayson answered, her voice tight with exhaustion. We've identified several quantum-based principles in their technology. But we're still not sure how they're able to manipulate energy so efficiently. Whatever they've done, it's beyond anything we can currently replicate. Garrick clenched his fists, frustration rising. We don't have the luxury of time to reinvent the wheel. If we don't hit them now, the colonies are gone. Grayson nodded, her face grim. Understood, sir. We'll need to rely on what we've got. Then let's make it count, Garrick said. Set course for the Galzan formation. We hit them hard, hit them fast, and we don't stop. The Icarus moved with brutal efficiency, cutting through the nebula at full speed. Garrick's thoughts flickered back to Earth, back to the reason they were all here. This wasn't just a mission. It was a matter of survival. If they didn't show the Galzan that humanity would fight to the death, there would be no Earth left to defend. The command center hummed with activity as the crew prepared for the impending assault. Garrick felt the weight of every decision. Each strike, each move, could be their last. But they couldn't afford to hesitate. If humanity didn't show resilience now, they would be wiped out, forgotten in the annals of history. He wasn't willing to let that happen. Captain, Ramirez called from the communications console. We've got a transmission from the colonies. They're requesting immediate backup. Garrick didn't even look at her. Tell them we're on our way. Hold tight for just a little longer. Understood. The tension on the bridge was thick as the crew followed Garrick's lead. No one spoke, but everyone knew the stakes. This wasn't just about the mission. It was about proving that humanity would not be so easily defeated. The Icarus came out of the nebula, the enemy fleet in clear view. The Galzan ships were massive, their sleek forms almost glowing in the vacuum of space. Garrick's pulse quickened as he saw their formation, a wall of ships stacked tightly, their weapons primed. But even as the odds stacked against them, Garrick knew this was their moment. Engage! He barked, his voice cutting through the silence. The Icarus launched its first salvo, sending a barrage of plasma missiles toward the Galzan ships. The explosions lit up the blackness of space, momentarily blinding the crew. But Garrick didn't let the chaos consume him. He remained focused, watching the tactical readouts, his eyes scanning for any sign of weakness in the Galzan formation. They're returning fire! Grayson shouted, her fingers flying over the console. Shields holding, but just barely. The ship shuddered as the Galzan weapons hit their mark, but the Icarus held steady. The crew was ready for this. They had trained for this. The stakes had never been higher, but they weren't about to let Earth fall. Redirect energy to the forward shields, Garrick ordered. Full throttle. We're going straight for their flagship. Sir, Grayson said, her voice laced with disbelief. Their flagship's energy signature is off the charts. We can't take it down with just our current weapons. Garrick's jaw tightened. We don't have a choice. We need to take them down. Now. The Icarus surged forward, dodging enemy fire with precision. The ship's engines roared as it closed in on the Galzan flagship, a massive ship that towered over the others. As they neared the flagship, Garrick could see the sheer scale of the threat. The alien technology was unlike anything they had ever faced, advanced beyond human comprehension. But that didn't matter anymore. We're in range, Grayson said. Fire the modified torpedoes. The torpedoes launched in a brilliant arc, striking the flagship's shields. The impact was immediate, shields flared, then shattered, allowing the next round of missiles to hit the flagship directly. The massive ship staggered, its engines sputtering as its power systems overloaded. They're retreating! Ramirez shouted, her voice filled with surprise. The flagship is falling back! Garrick's heart pounded in his chest. Keep the pressure on them. Don't let them regroup. The Galzan fleet, staggered by the assault, began to retreat into the nebula, leaving their flagship behind. Garrick watched the holographic display, knowing they had just made a significant dent in the enemy's forces. But he also knew this wasn't over. The Galzan had adapted before. They would adapt again. The crew cheered, but Garrick remained stoic. The fight wasn't over, not yet. Damage report? He ordered. Minimal, Grayson replied. We've taken some hits, but we're still operational. The Galzan flagship is crippled, but it's not destroyed. They'll be back. I know, Garrick said quietly. But for now, we've bought Earth some time. As the Icarus hovered above Earth's atmosphere, Garrick allowed himself a moment of reflection. They had survived the first wave. But the war was far from over. The Galzan Empire would return, and humanity would have to be ready. We'll fight, Garrick muttered to himself. We'll fight until the end. And for the first time in days, Garrick allowed himself to believe it.